and we're getting a weekend getaway here. So I'll be here live from the next 3 days. We're staying really, really wonderful Airbnb right here in Tucson near the University of Arizona. So wherever I am, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn on Wi-Fi and we're going to have the 365 stream. So thank you so much for joining me. And thank you as always for tuning in. That's something that beneficial to everybody is if you would kindly hit the share button. This will reach many more people. And that's what we want. That's what we want in my work. That's really the best way to get this message out there to as many people as possible. So I am going to go through here lesson 6 of the workbook for students today. That is it's very important, and they're all important, but this follows up on lesson 5, where we were looking yesterday at being upset at things, looking at our forms of upset, our different forms of upset, our anger, our sadness, maybe anxiety, frustration, our fears, all of those forms of upset. And we're not upset for the reasons that we think. Now, why are we in fact upset? Well, we're going to talk about that, especially in tomorrow's lesson, when we look at not being upset for the reasons that we think. Well, we're upset because we're actually looking at the past. You may have encountered that idea in some form of spiritual practice somewhere along the line here. So as people are tuning in here today, take a moment and hit that share button again, if you don't mind, and let us know where you're tuning in from. We've had people tuning in from all over the world, from New York, from Romania, and all over. So again, thank you for joining me. Lesson 6, let's get right into it here today. Lesson 6 here in A Course in Miracles in the workbook says, I'm upset because I see something that is not there. Okay. And well, why would that be? We're looking at all of our forms of upset here, and what's important is that we do it in a non-discriminatory manner. What do I mean by that? I mean, we apply it to everything. We search our own mind, which we should be doing anyway, and we look at all of the forms of upset and we treat them exactly the same way. It's very, very important that we do this, frankly, because we have a tendency to keep some forms of upset and not others. We have a tendency to want to stay angry at people. Let's say you're angry at an ex-spouse, an ex-partner, for example. We have a tendency to want to hang on to that bitterness. Why? Because he or she treated me so badly. They deserve it. They deserve punishment. And it may seem shocking that we think this all the time, but we do. We think this all of the time because we want to keep certain forms of upset and not others. So these workbook exercises are very, very important in the practice of not keeping them and treating them all equally. It's very, very, very important that we do just that. So apply them. Take a minute. When you're doing this exercise for today, take a moment and apply these teachings indiscriminately. Take some form, whatever form of upset you feel, and use that today. The Course gives examples. I'm angry at, and then there's a blank, because I see something that's not there. Right? It's the past. But without thinking too much about that without getting too far ahead of ourselves, maybe that makes sense to you, maybe it doesn't. Take this idea for lesson 6 and just apply it 3 or 4 times today. Search your mind, right? I'm angry at my ex-spouse because I see something that's not there. I'm worried about the bills because I see something that's not there. I'm worried about the pandemic because I see something that's not there. I'm anxious about the geopolitical climate because I see something that's not there. And just apply this indiscriminately. It's for the application of the idea to anything that seems to upset you. Anything at all. And if you're feeling great, that's wonderful. This can be something that trips people up, is to think that you've got it all covered, right? We think we do that. That happens to me. Sometimes you think if you're feeling great, you think, oh gosh, I've got it all figured out. I'm feeling great. I don't really need this, do I? No, you do. If you actually search, you will find that what happens is there's a lot of forms of upset. Anxiety creeps up, worry creeps up, fear of some kind creeps in. And what happens is you get carried away in that. We all do. So I'm angry at my partner because I see something that's not there, for example. Anything that seems to upset you. Now, what we looked at yesterday that I want to touch on again today, that's very, very important for us, is that all forms of upset are in fact equal. They're in fact the same. It doesn't seem like it, right? Because a conflict with an ex-partner can look a lot differently than being worried about paying a bill, or maybe not. Right? They're actually all the same because they're equally as upsetting to our peace of mind. Either you're choosing love, if I'm concerned about paying a bill, for example, if I'm concerned about anything at all, it takes us out of the presence of love. It does. It takes us, it's fear, concern, worry, anger, frustration. All of those are manifestations of fear. And if you take nothing else from the study of A Course in Miracles, it's that every moment of every day we have an opportunity to decide for love. We have a choice between love and fear. And absolutely, hands down, if you were to take nothing else from this study, that would be very, very important. In fact, it's critical. So we'll take a look here and see if anyone's joining on the comment thread here. Now, thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in here. And please share. So if you're finding that you're resistant to these exercises, let's talk about this, because these bring up all kinds of things for us, don't they? This brings up all kinds of difficulty because people want to fall back into habitual tendencies. We totally want to fall back into the, well, yeah, I want to just keep this form of upset because my ex deserves it. Okay. Yeah, I want to keep that because, well, it's part of my identity. I don't put up with that. Okay, well, that's good. It's part of having healthy adult boundaries, which is very spiritual. By the way, I find that the more spiritual practice I've engaged in, the more I've been able to create healthy boundaries in my life. So really, that's not an issue, but there are no small upsets. And the commentary here on lesson 6 of the workbook goes on to tell us this. They're all equally disturbing to our peace of mind. And it invites us, if we're experiencing resistance, to just read this, recite this verbatim if you need to. It's very important. It says, I cannot keep this form of upset, whatever it is, and let the others go. For the purposes of this exercise, then, I will treat them as the same, all of them. Treat them all as the same, even if it's just for a minute and you go back to believing things are very different. You know, we talk about here in the course the fact that we apply labels and gradations and degrees of goodness, degrees of badness, right? We label and we separate and we categorize and we emphasize those. And frankly, we define and defend these as our personal territory. So what this exercise is saying is just take a minute. Just take a minute to the best of your ability and let that go. Let it go. Just span your mind and your thoughts. Spend a minute with that and say, I'm angry at the cat because I see something that's not there. I'm frustrated with my partner because I see something that's not there. I'm uncomfortable with the temperature in this room because I see something that's not there, and so on and so on. And you practice this 3 or 4 times a day. So I'm going to check the comments here. Thank you all for tuning in and also for sharing this live stream. Hello, Lee. Thank you for joining me here today. And this live stream is, by the way, 365 days a year. It's daily. Tomorrow I'll be going live here from the same spot in Tucson, Arizona, right here at noon Eastern time. So if you'll notice, the days are jumping around a little bit. So I would invite all of you to check the show guide here on Enlightened World Network's Facebook page for the actual daily show times, because this live stream jumps around. It's 15 to 20 minutes, and sometimes I'll run maybe a little bit longer than that, and well, sometimes I won't. And today, it's relatively straightforward. I just want to invite you to take what the workbook says to heart. And again, I can't emphasize enough that even if you only are able to suspend disbelief for 1 minute, we can all do that. Think of us watching a movie or reading a novel. We suspend our disbelief. We're reading a novel. We know it's a story that somebody made up, but we enjoy it nonetheless. So I know for a fact that each of us has 1 minute to be able to apply these exercises 3 or 4 times during the day. It doesn't matter how busy you are. Now, if you forget, so what? Okay, this is something that someone always mentions in conjunction with the workbook, and I hear this a lot, that, well, I'm making the effort, I'm trying to get through this. Maybe this is the 2nd or 3rd or 27th time you've attempted to get through the workbook. Well, it's not about trying. Honestly, it's about just showing up, applying the idea for the day, and leaving it at that. Nothing more is required. Now, if you're actually going to effect change on the level of the mind, which is what this course is working toward, then nothing less is required. Just show up and do your best. This is one of the 4 agreements. You may be familiar with the 4 agreements, the book by Don Miguel Ruiz. One of them is do your best. Your best on a given day might not be the same as your best on another day. What if you're sick? What if you're just not feeling it on that day? And you're only able to do 1 practice period instead of 3 or 4. That's okay. Keep going. If you forget one day, no problem. Go back. This is on YouTube, on the Enlightened World Network. You can follow along, just pick up where you left off. And yeah, it's about doing it. Right? Try doesn't really help us much in life, does it? Yeah, just make the commitment 1 moment at a time, show up and do this, do that practice, and most importantly, forgive yourself. We are our own worst critics as human beings, without question. Each one of us is our own worst critic for sure. So if you find yourself forgetting to do these exercises, forgive yourself. Really, give yourself some grace, please. This is something that a course teaches. And when we talk about forgiveness, and we'll talk about it at length over the next couple of years here on this live stream, we'll talk about it in many different ways, but forgive yourself. Some people find that the most difficult thing to do, and it may really be the most important. So I invite your comments and questions. If you catch this on the replay, feel free to type in a question or a comment. I'm happy to answer these for you. And thank you so much for joining me here today. This has been A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love.